I wanted to make this video about an aspect of Sheik's needles that I think a lot of people don't know about, or the ones who do know about it don't really know why it happens. So if I was to ask you what Sheik's fully charged needles do, the damage, you'd probably say 18%. That's what it does at max range, 18%. But what I'm going to show you is that there are two other distances where the needles do 1% less damage. There's mid-range and close range. So I'm going to unstale my needles and then I'll show you mid-range. So now at mid-range, a fully charged needles will do 17%. Now I'll unstale them again and show you close range. And close range, 16%. So when I noticed this happen, I went and looked at some of the other characters with projectiles, and they all have normal behaving projectiles that deal the same amount of damage regardless of the distance. So I thought, what's the difference between Sheik's projectiles and theirs? And it's that Sheik's projectiles are multi-hit. And the reason that's significant is because staleness is affected differently by multi-hit moves in Melee than other Smash games. Every hit of the multi-hit move applies one stack of staleness up to 9, which is the maximum. So usually the multi-hit moves, a single instance of the move being used counts for one stack of staleness, regardless of how many hits you get in. But in Melee, that's not how it works. So that's significant for Sheik, because if I throw all my needles from a burst from a certain range, all 6 needles will be airborne before the first one hits my target. That means that they're all being thrown with no staleness and deal the full 3% damage. Then when I get a little bit closer, the first needle that I throw hits my target before the last needle is able to leave Sheik's hand. So that last needle has one stack of staleness applied to it, which makes it do slightly less damage. And then at closest range, the first 2 needles that I throw both hit Fox before the last 2 needles leave Sheik's hand. So those last 2 needles both have staleness applied to them, and that explains the 2% loss, leading to 16%. So that's the reason for the loss of damage in regard to distance. And to show you that I'm confident that it's staleness that's the reason for this, I'm going to show you that distance has no effect on needles if they're fully staled. So I'll throw enough needles so that they're definitely staled, and then I'll show you multiple distances with fully staled needles, and they all do the same amount of damage. So with fully staled needles at max range, they do 9 damage. Fully staled needles at mid-range does 9 damage. And fully staled needles at close range does 9%. So as you can see, the percent doesn't change at all depending on distance if the needles are already fully staled, because there's no more staleness to apply to them. So that shows that decreasing the distance only decreases the percentage when the needles aren't staled, because getting closer to your target will make the first needles hit faster and stale the later needles. And when all the needles are already fully staled, that doesn't affect anything. So that shows that it's staleness that's actually the culprit behind the percentage difference.